From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry we are a bit behind schedule today. We had done a previous recording and the audio was just absolutely garbage, so we couldn't use it. We had a little issue. We've got it fixed. We've got it taken care of. We're now redoing the show at a later time, simply because the audio was so bad I wasn't going to publish that podcast. So let's get into today's show. We've got a lot to talk about for Monday, June 27th, 2022, cyberhubpodcast.com. If you missed our Friday conversation with Eric Krohn, we talked about cyber certs and we had some trivia and some people want some really cool swag. So you should tune in this Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, with my good buddy James McQuiggan. We're going to be talking about, 4th of July and so much awesome stuff that's been going around, as we get ready for the 4th of July weekend and a very long weekend at that. So next week, for 4th of July, we would not be having a show, just so you guys know. Gang, we gotta take some time off, right? Mental health time. Now, without further ado, let's get into today's show. My awesome double espresso coffee cup. Cheers. All right, let's start off with this story over at CODESYS, who does ICS automation software, where a critical flaw has been identified. The vulnerabilities are simple to exploit. They can be successfully exploited to cause consequences like information leakage, PLCs entering a severe fault state, and arbitrary code execution. Here's what you have to understand. Industrial control systems run oil and gas. They run electricity. They run natural gas. They run airports, train stations, massive infrastructure. And so any one of these software vulnerabilities is an opportunity to disrupt, and this has long-standing implications. Meaning, we all remember the Colonial Pipeline a year ago. The Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack impacted the price of oil and gas, especially in the Southeast and Northeast, where Colonial was really the main supplier of oil. When they stopped the supply, there were worries about shortages, and they had to drive stuff up in trucks rather than through pipelines, which is much quicker, far more efficient, and much cheaper. So this specific vulnerability has 2 bugs that are rated critical, 7 as high and 2 as medium. There's now a update for all of this. So if you are in the ICS, if you work within the ICS industry, if you're a consultant there, this is one that you want to put on the radar if they're using it, to get it updated. Researchers say that it took Oracle 6 months to patch a mega vulnerability affecting many systems. The CVE of this one is 2022-21445, CVSS score of 9.8. The vulnerability is described as a deserialization of untrusted data, which could be exploited to achieve arbitrary code execution. It's identified in the ADF faces component. The issue can be exploited remotely and without authentication. The issue here is they say, well, we reported it in October. They didn't patch it till April, 6 months after the initial report. But here's the thing. Patching is very, very difficult. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to release a patch that's ineffective or inefficient or takes down other business processes in the state of doing so, right? So there are several vulnerabilities that were found by them. They nicknamed this the miracle exploit. According to Oracle, there's a whole technical write-up on it. You can find it at cyberhubpodcast.com or in the show notes on your favorite podcast listening platform. Nonetheless, sometimes it takes time to patch something. And as long as we're doing the proper disclosure, meaning we're notifying Oracle is able to internally to its customers build a workaround, a temporary one, until a complete patch is made, it's better than pushing out a patch. That's the side I'm on, right? You can always put compensating controls around stuff. What you can't do is fix a bad patch. And a bad patch could have greater impact on business operations than anything else. So PyPi Python packages have been caught sending stolen AWS keys to unsecured site. A really big one here. So we've talked about PyPi before on the show. It's the Python open source repository. It's a bunch of packages that software developers use when they're using Python-based projects. It's how you share your work. It's kind of like, instead of writing this, there's a package, you go out, you pull it. Well, malicious actors know this. They're targeting these packages. And so what we're seeing here is that several of these libraries that have been used have had a vulnerability, and not only a vulnerability, but actually like illicit type of malware put in to 5 of these libraries that people use. and they're actually mimicking legitimate and popular projects on PyPi. And again, this goes to point out that you really have to have a control mechanism in place for your open source repositories. And a software bill of materials is not something very, very far-fetched here, right? Additionally, within your SLDC and within your CI/CD pipeline, if you put in these packages as the trusted ones, the ones that you've verified and you know are legitimate, within your CI/CD pipeline, if you're using, GitHub, GitLab, or something of that nature, and you're able to just have the link within your documentation, within your procedures, it makes life so much more easier, and helps avoid these types of mistakes, which are typically done by entry-level engineers or developers that are trying to move fast, trying to deliver code. They're pulling stuff out of a library. They're not really paying attention, kind of like how people download an app. They'll see Snapchat and Snapchat, but one's promoted, one's not. Well, Snapchat wouldn't promote it when you're looking for their keyword, right? They may promote their app if you're looking for Instagram, but not necessarily Snapchat per se. So again, something here really critical. PyPi security needs to get a little bit better. Go beyond, scrutinize release histories, upload dates, homepage links, package descriptions, and download numbers to do that. Have someone within your vendor management team maybe go out and look at the different libraries that your developers would need to use and then authenticate them as well. That's another thing. Iran continues to be under a barrage of cyber attacks, this one targeting their steel industry and a major steel disruption here. So you never believe what comes out of Iran, right? Iranian news media never wants it to be like, yeah, we got bogged down. Last year, they had one on their port where they had trucks lined up for miles because they couldn't get containers off ships, right? Because they got shut down. Their nuclear plants have had like explosions as a result of cyber attacks. Stuff here has been going on for quite some time. Now, they're saying the cyber attack was unsuccessful. However, we've actually did some checks of our own here at the CyberHub Podcast and found out that it's completely shut down their the nation's their steel companies actually owned by the government, right? Which lets you know just how effective it is. But this specifically, they're saying like the plant was already shut down because we didn't have electricity. Maybe you didn't have electricity because of the cyber attack, because that's how you kind of get a Trojan in there. Nonetheless, there's been a whole bunch of stuff going on with Iran. Iran's now saying they're very close to having a nuclear bomb. You can expect that we're going to see a lot more of this go on here over the next several weeks and months, especially with President Biden headed to Saudi, Israel in a few weeks. That's definitely going to be something to keep in mind. And then there's this story. This is an analysis by Joseph Marks, right? Joseph Marks wrote Cybersecurity 202. It was a newsletter he put out. And he kind of wrote this piece in the Washington Post. And the reason I bring it up is because it's in the Washington Post. And most of our executives, most of the people we work with would read this and go, oh man, this is really, really bad. And you kind of take some phone calls on it. I had a few board members actually contact me just about this one thing. So here's the thing about this. It's far-fetched. It's very historical. It's talking more about Russia than it is China. And people have to understand, you haven't seen anything yet in the weaponization of cyber until China decides to enact their one China policy and go after Taiwan. It's just the bottom line here. Once they do that, then we're going to see a whole lot more about it. As far as he says, a lot of big talk, but little real change. Disagree. I think CISA has done an unbelievable job around changing the private-public partnership, and that's what it's going to take to get cybersecurity on the same kind of level playing field. Private organizations can't rely on government. Government can't reliably take the whole thing on its shoulders, and there is a private-public partnership that needs to be done, the kind that we saw in this country during World War II when it came to weapons manufacturing and supplying the front lines of the war, where kind of everyone came down, and it wasn't just government, it was public and private businesses that said, all right, we're going to do X, we're going to revert these business lines to support the war efforts because they understood that. The same applies in cybersecurity. Only when private organizations understand that you've got to look at your cybersecurity as a thing of good and work with the government on it, only then can you really be able to get stuff done, and waiting for Congress and Senate to enact laws or executive orders is just a waste. Now, this administration has done some good job funding cybersecurity. CISO has gotten a whole lot more in their budget now, but we ought to be aware that until we get a good private-public partnership done, and until we're able to create a level of deterrence, it's going to be very, very hard to get there. And none of that is mentioned in this article. Folks, that's it for the show today. We'll be back with a lot more tomorrow. Again, sorry for the late hour of pushing this out, but we did have technical issues, so do apologize about that. Thank you all for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Most importantly, have a great rest of your week and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.